the ground for a mistrial. I'd ask the judge, on every juror poll, did they see this tweet and did it affect them?
Okay, so that was going to be my question, which is about whether or not, I mean, you certainly can make the argument, as you are, that this kind of behavior is untoward. But as it plays into the actual case and the ground rules that not only this judge, but that every case like this should follow, how is this grounds for a mistrial?
No, having sex with a guy you met a couple hours earlier in a Lake Tahoe lounge is untoward. This is mistrial material. This is having testified as a prosecution witness. She should have went back and hid somewhere and kept her mouth shut. Now she knows the defendant is gagged, and now she's sticking a finger in his eye by putting these posts out. And it really, look, jurors aren't supposed to look at social media. They do. These jurors should be polled individually, each and every one of them, the 12 and the 4, the alternates. Did you say anything, and could it affect your decision?
I should add that your former client, the former president, denies that there was that encounter that you just talked about in very colorful terms. So we should put that out there on the record, that is the case. So two things. First, I would love for you to talk about, again, just for the record, your client, your former client, I should say, has said that this encounter didn't happen. But what you said about it being untoward for her to have sex allegedly with Donald Trump, Casey's point about what about his responsibility with a wife and a brand new baby.
Casey, I agree with you. If it happened, there's plenty to spread around.
You just basically said it was untoward. It did happen. It was untoward.
From a criminal trial to the court of moral police here.
You seem to have just acknowledged that it did happen, though, and that it was untoward in criticizing Stormy Daniels. Look, I take your point about the tweet. In this case, he's...
No.
Right,
I can't. How can I acknowledge I wasn't there? She said it happened. She said it happened. Based on her sworn testimony, I made that comment. I don't know what happened.
You good?
I mean,
okay, hold on.
Tale of two networks. While this conversation is going on CNN, over at Fox, guests are encouraging Trump to attack daughters of judges.
One quick final word. President Trump needs to stop calling the judge conflicted. He needs to explain why he's conflicted. Every day of the trial, he goes in there and he says, the judge is conflicted bigger than I've ever seen anywhere in my life. He doesn't explain how or why. He needs to say that the judge's daughter works for a Democratic political consulting firm that does anti-Trump business. He needs to explain it. Otherwise, it's just an assertion with no proof. And the president, if he's going to say it, back it up, explain it.
I think that's a violation of the gag order. Is it not?
No, he didn't criticize the judge.
Okay.
He's free.
Not the judge, but the family. That's an issue.
When he says the judge is conflicted, you can still explain how and why, and I think comply with the gag order.
I might be wrong, but he's trying to be, President Trump is trying to be careful in his language. That's why he is very measured in his words. Thank you for
He said he was editing in real time today.
But his surrogates don't have to be.
And the assumption that people know why the judge is conflicted just doesn't hold up unless you follow every detail of the trial. You have to explain these things.
Which we do here for you.
Stormy Daniels was the star witness this weekend of the trial, not only because the fact is that the payment made by Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels at the request of Donald Trump is the heart of the falsification business records crime that he is on trial for, but because it really shows the motive, the reason why this was a crime and not just him wanting his wife to not find out about the affair.
Somebody paid a lawyer, and in paying the lawyer, so it was a legal expense, that somebody happened to be me. I didn't do the bookkeeping. I didn't even know about it, but a very good bookkeeper marked a legal expense down as a legal expense. They didn't call it construction. They didn't call it building something or concrete or electrical cost. They called, very simply, a legal expense to a lawyer. He was a lawyer, not a fixer. He was a lawyer. Legal expense to a lawyer. They called it legal expense. They said it was marked incorrectly. What else would you call it? It's a legal fee or a legal expense, and we called it a legal expense. This is what the case is about. And it's not about all of the other stuff that you've been seeing, because we're using that to attempt, it's had no impact because it's so old, attempt to do something to me politically.
In order for the falsification of the business record to become a felony, it needs to have intended to conceal one of three crimes: tax fraud, New York election laws, or the federal election laws. Trump is trying to argue that he made this payment because he was a family man. He didn't want his wife to find out. So Stormy Daniels' testimony was huge. Her really creepy details were very significant. The fact that she thought she was going to dinner and he opened the door in a robe. The fact that he said that she reminded him of his daughter and then proceeded to have sex with her. This huge power imbalance, this huge age imbalance, because Access Hollywood tape talked about what? It talked about him being able to take advantage of women sexually because he was just that powerful.
I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. You know, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the I can do anything.
The jury heard those words. They didn't hear the tape, but it was read into the evidence. At the time of the 2016 election, the defense of Trump and his allies was, it was all locker room talk. This was locker room talk. It was talk, 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 and that's it. But Stormy Daniels had a story, and that story was very close to what he said on the Access Hollywood tape. Her testimony this week showed, what did it show? A man with a lot more power taking advantage of a woman with a lot less power. She describes being surprised coming out of the bathroom and he's on the bed in his boxers. She describes being surprised about having sex with him. She didn't even realize how she had gotten there. That's the kind of action that he described in the Access Hollywood tape. Being so powerful, you could take advantage of women. And her story is a story of a man that's so powerful, he's taking advantage of women. And that's why it was so important to buy and bury her story before the 2016 election. It wasn't a story of a love affair. It was a concrete example of exactly what he just bragged about doing on Access Hollywood. So watch for the prosecutor to tie her story to that tape in closing arguments to disprove any defense that this was really about his marriage. It was about the fact that as Hope Hicks testified, the campaign was in crisis over the Access Hollywood tape. And the last thing they needed was further evidence that, yes, that was the kind of man Trump was.
Well, tonight we begin at the end. Because this time, the end tells you everything you need to know about what came before that in the courtroom today, where Donald Trump was called the orange turd repeatedly by Stormy Daniels and by his own lawyer. That's right. That's how Donald Trump's day went today. The woman he has paid more money to than any woman he hasn't married, criminal defense attorney Susan Nicholas, repeatedly called her client Donald Trump the orange turd on what she thought was an effective cross-examination of Stormy Daniels. So imagine Donald Trump sitting in that courtroom today, slumped in his chair, leaving his eyes closed for long stretches, being forced to listen with eyes closed or eyes open to one of his criminal defense lawyers on whom he has lavished money provided by his political contributors. Listen to her repeatedly call him the orange turd. And Donald Trump is, of course, the most vain human being who has ever entered that courthouse. But his colossal vanity combined with his even more colossal stupidity leaves us unable to tell what he was experiencing. A normal person couldn't be more humiliated. Donald Trump? Was that the first time he's heard himself referred to as the orange turd? His lawyer was doing what he ordered her to do, which was keep Stormy Daniels on the witness stand as long as possible, in the Trump belief that simply minutes on the witness stand count as somehow scoring points against Stormy Daniels. The orange turd landed an hour into a belabored cross-examination by Susan Nicholas that was repetitive, tedious, and almost entirely irrelevant.
On cross-examination of Stormy Daniels, his lawyers made it worse. They basically slut-shamed her. They basically tried to say that because she was paid to have sex in films, that she shouldn't have been bothered, that she was okay with having sex with Donald Trump. And the fact is, first of all, we're not in the 80s, and this kind of post-Me Too era doesn't really fly to say that no matter what kind of profession you're in, you can't then have consensual sex, that all sex has to be consensual based on your profession. That argument just doesn't really fly anymore. But also, this isn't a sexual assault case. Whether or not she consented to have sex with Donald Trump is not at issue. So them trying to say she had slept around so much that whether or not she consented to it really just made the defense look bad in front of the jury. Because the fact is, whether or not what she said was true, those were the details that were going to come out, and they had to buy the story for those details to not come out. It's Donald Trump who probably told his lawyers to have that kind of line of questioning because he wants this narrative to be out there that she, was willing and consented if this happened at all. But again, this is not a sexual assault case. Her actual consent was not and is not at issue here.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.